All right, so I have two articles for you today. One, a serious article, and one, oh so not serious. Anyway, let's start with the serious article. Texas passes bill banning abortion pills from being mailed to the state. Now, two things wrong with this. One, you're forcing your laws on the rest of the country. That's number one. Number two, by all means, if that's illegal, then go after the people who wanted it mailed in. Don't go after the doctors out of state. That's forcing your laws on other states. That's number one. Then there's number two, the hypocrisy of said forcing all states to abide by your rules. Because these are the same yahoos who scream states' rights. It's not states' rights if you're forcing the entire country to follow your rules. It's no longer states' rights. But then again, this is the same state amongst other southern states that had fugitive slave laws and demanded that states like New York, which had no such laws and didn't actually have to return runaway slaves, were forced by the federal government to do just that. Because, it's states' rights when the states are doing what you want, but if they're not, then you have to force your will on them. Anyway, let's get to the article. And let's see, this article was also originally published in the 19th. I'm really going to have to look up this publication because I know nothing about it. Texas lawmakers voted to enact sweeping new restrictions on abortion pills mailed to the state, offering a possible blueprint for other states that have banned abortion. House Bill 7 gives private citizens the right to sue health providers for mailing, prescribing, or providing abortion medications to patients in the state of Texas. Providers sued under the bill risk penalties of at least $100,000. And how is this going to be enforced since these providers are not in the state? The bill, which passed after heated negotiations between the state's various anti-abortion advocacy groups, now awaits Governor Greg Abbott's signature. Its supporters believe it could represent a new step in the national battle over abortion rights. The bill will also authorize lawsuits against pharmaceutical manufacturers if they make medications used by Texans for abortion, a provision that could chill drug development and make the pills harder to attain for people beyond the Lone Star State. Because again, Texas is trying to enforce their vision on the rest of the country, even while screaming states' rights. So, sorry, knocked over my microphone. Texas is the largest state to have almost completely outlawed abortion, but thousands of residents each month have continued to terminate their pregnancies by ordering medication from healthcare providers who practice in states where procedures remain legal. Those medical professionals work under the protection of SHIELD laws, statutes that hold their home states won't cooperate with an out-of-state prosecution. One estimate suggests that by the end of 2024, more than 3,400 Texans received these telehealth abortions each month. Patients who receive abortion bills in the mail can end their pregnancies from their own homes, a simpler and cheaper option than traveling to another state for care. Global health organizations have endorsed telehealth abortions, and in the years since Roe v. Wade's overturn, the practice has soared in popularity. So much so that despite the proliferation of state bans, the number of abortions done in the United States have actually increased. About 1 in 4 abortions are performed through telehealth. Half of those are for people living in states with abortion restrictions, getting care from Shield law providers. And shouldn't surprise me. Now, I guess I'm a bit surprised it went up, but it shouldn't surprise me that, people are still getting abortions. It shouldn't surprise anybody. I mean, everyone has heard of the back alley abortions that women used to get when abortion was illegal the first time. Making abortions illegal does not stop abortions. It just will stop safe abortions. So because of this, more people discovered that telehealth abortions are a thing, and maybe that's why abortions went up. Either that or people are just scared to death of complications, that they're erring on the side of caution, that people who normally would be like, okay, well, we'll see what happens, and at the first sign of trouble, abortion it is, now are being cautious and thinking, okay, this could potentially happen to me because of family history, or because I went through a problem pregnancy before, or whatever the reason. So they're more likely to end their pregnancies through telehealth abortions, through pills, simply because they don't want to chance it. So that might account for the increase. But, the fact that abortions are happening shouldn't surprise anybody except for people who seem to be convinced that abortion bans will stop abortions, because they are convinced that women suddenly will stop being desperate, that women will just be like, oh, well, I guess I'll have to die then, as opposed to fighting back. I mean, if someone needs an abortion, they will find a way to get an abortion. Is not rocket science. Except to the people who seem to think that if you outlaw abortion, that women will have no choice but to go through a pregnancy that they may not want, or might end up killing them, or that their fetus isn't viable and will not survive birth. So, because the people who advocate for abortion bans refuse to accept that this is anything but women who had a one-night stand and are like, damn, I need to have an abortion now, and just walk to the clinic, and that they do this every time because they're just loose women who, have no care in the world, because that's not how anything works. But anyway, back to the article. Patients who receive abortion pills in the mail can end their pregnancies. Whoops, I read that already. Sorry. The bill does not protect women, children, or families, State Senator Carol Alvarado, a Democrat, said during the legislators' debate. It deputizes Texans as bounty hunters. It replaces compassion with suspicion. Didn't they just do that with that trans bathroom bill? Yeah, that's exactly what they did. So, of course it doesn't protect women, children, or families, because it doesn't protect women, because all Texans are managing to do is that if a woman needs an abortion, I'm not talking about women whose birth control didn't work and they ended up with an unwanted pregnancy and went and had an abortion in the first trimester. I'm not talking about that. Or early beginnings of the second. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about women who need abortions because they will not survive the pregnancy. They will be maimed somehow. And by maimed, I mean that they will not be able to have further children. And of course, if there's the chance that, okay, you successfully gave birth, but the fetus was never viable. So if you're lucky, the baby will die immediately. Or it'll be a stillbirth, which that won't mess with the woman's head at all. That won't be traumatic at all. And the longer that the baby survives, say like a week, but is in tremendous pain, how is that beneficial to the child? It's not. Oh, great. The baby got to live in excruciating pain for a week. Woohoo! Cigars all around. We did it. We forced a woman to give birth to a non-viable child. Great. You should be proud of yourselves. And obviously it won't benefit families because a lot of women who get abortions already have children. They're not getting abortions because they're just, loose women or whores or whatever you want to call them. And, decide, oh, I had sex, got pregnant, so off to the abortion clinic I go. No, a lot of these women have children and they just, something went wrong. Because, pregnancy isn't, even if you had one healthy child or two healthy children, doesn't mean the third one's going to be healthy. Doesn't mean that the third one is going to be non-problematic simply because the other ones were. Each pregnancy is different. So, yeah, a lot of women who already have families need to have an abortion. And if they do, or maybe their financial situation went down the toilet and they can't afford another child. Well, abortion it is then. And for those who think that adoption should be the way to go, unless it's one of those adoptions where I don't know if they're managed to close the adoption while she's still pregnant. I don't know if that person who adopted pays for the woman's medical care. So unless that's a possibility, no, adoption is not a viable option. But like I said, I don't know how that works. So if it's possible that someone other than the pregnant person is the one paying, then only then would adoption be an option in that case. Okay. So obviously you don't want the mother to die because if she dies, then the father is left caring for children as a single father, which isn't easy. Being a single parent of either sex, not easy. Or if she was single herself, then what happens to the kids? Anyway, abortion opponents across the country have been in search of a way to stop this practice. In Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton has launched a civil lawsuit against a Shield law provider, Dr. Margaret Carpenter of New York. The case is now being litigated in state courts. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill has filed criminal charges against Carpenter. 2 Texas residents have filed separate civil cases against shield law providers. Both cases are being argued in federal court by lawyer Jonathan Mitchell, Texas's former Solicitor General, who has spearheaded several anti-abortion cases. In Washington, D.C., major anti-abortion groups have been pressing the federal government to impose new restrictions on mifepristone, one of the drugs used in medication abortions, that would effectively outlaw telehealth. None of those effects have stopped telehealth abortions. The Texas bill, backed by the influential lobby Texas Right to Life, could offer a new path forward, modeled after the state's 6-week abortion ban, which in 2021 eliminated access to most abortions in the state. Even before Roe's overturn, the legislation threatens shield law providers with financially ruinous lawsuits. Still, it's not yet clear how providers in other states will respond. I think we'll just see, one California-based shield law physician who requested that her name be withheld because of the lawsuits filed against her colleagues. If it's a state versus state, it feels like we've got a solid plan. Even some abortion opponents expressed skepticism that the bill would play a meaningful role in blocking the distribution of abortion pills, an issue many believe will ultimately be settled in federal court. Perhaps it has some potential, but I think it is vastly oversold, says Kayleen Wright, who heads Texas Texans for Life, an anti-abortion group. The bill was subjected to heated negotiations between various anti-abortion groups. Initially proposed in March, a previous version of the abortion pill bill failed in the final days of Texas's regular legislative session after lawmakers ran out of time to vote it out of the state's House of Representatives. Plaintiffs related to the unborn child can receive $100,000 in damages through lawsuits filed against abortion providers. People with no connection to the pregnancy can receive $10,000 if they file suit. The remaining $90,000 would be donated to a charity, though the bill doesn't specify which. A modification made to win over lobbyists from Texans for Life and the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops, who had both voiced concerns the bills could encourage a plethora of lawsuits from people with no connection to the pregnancy or ultimately result in legal action targeting abortion patients themselves. The bill also explicitly prohibits using these civil lawsuits to force someone who received an abortion to sit for a deposition. Okay. I'm rather confused. How could donating money to charity be the thing that, make the charity nondescript as opposed to specifying which charity? How would that stop people from bringing frivolous lawsuits? That makes no sense to me, but okay. Now, I do like that they're not forcing the person who got the abortion to sit for a deposition. That's great. But what I do not understand is, why are we punishing the people doing their damn job? Are we operating under the assumption that the people who got the abortion are poor innocent victims who didn't know what they were doing? And that the doctors were like, let's see if we can get them to have an abortion, even though they don't actually need one or want one. That is literally not how anything works. Women know, unless men, trick women into taking an abortion pill, women generally know that they want an abortion or that they need an abortion. They do not need to be forced by other people to have it. The doctors will give them an option of, okay, this is what's happening and these are your options. They do not say, oh, well, you got to have an abortion no matter what. We're not going to take your word. We're not going to let you make the decision to not have an abortion. You have to have an abortion. Some women might hear the doctor say that this is the only way to save your life and go for it. Other women might say, I'll take my chance. Either they already have a plan in place of who will care for the child if they do die, or they're operating under the assumption that maybe they gave them 50-50 odds, or they gave them a certain odds of surviving that they're okay with. That's fine. That's completely up to them to make that decision, because it's a medical decision just like anything else that you decide with your doctor. So basically, this bill is saying, now obviously I do not want people going after the women who have abortions, because it's traumatic enough to have an abortion. We do not need bounty hunters going after women for, doing what they felt was right for themselves and their families. But this also implies, like I said, that women are tricked into having an abortion by these evil doctors, which, again, that's not how any of this works. So, moving on. Those changes reflect only one obstacle the bill faced. Initially proposed in March, a previous version of the abortion bill failed in the final days of Texas's regular legislative session after lawmakers ran out of time to vote it out of the state's House of Representatives. A collection of abortion opponents, including Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, pressed Abbott to call lawmakers back to Austin for a special session someone did not do their duty with editing. It just says that would abortion pill restrictions. So I assume that would have to vote on, that would have been to vote for abortion bill restrictions. But the bill did not pass in Texas's first special session, which ended on August 15th after Democratic lawmakers temporarily fled the state to block passage of GOP redistricting legislation. Abbott then called a second month-long legislative session to begin that same day. Democrats returned to the state after California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, committed to having his state maps redrawn as well, potentially neutralizing Republicans' congressional gains in Texas. I still really, and that is the end of that article, and I still really, really hope that Texas, because Texas is what I'm told is a non-voting state, that most people do not vote. So it would be just delicious if those people, that they tried so hard to gerrymander the maps even more so they get more seats, if they actually ended up losing seats anyway. Because a lot of Republicans are like, what the fuck? This isn't a Democrat-Republican issue. This is a MAGA and all the sane people issue. So, yeah. Anyway. So, let's get to the ridiculous. And, oh boy, just by the headline, yikes. Tucker Carlson says Pete Buttigieg is fake gay. Should answer questions about gay sex. So many questions. First off, how did Tucker Carlson decide that Pete Buttigieg is a fake gay? That's number one. And number two, okay, so Pete Buttigieg will answer humiliating questions about gay sex. How the fuck will Tucker Carlson know if it's legit or not? Seriously. That actually gives more questions about Tucker Carlson than it does to Pete Buttigieg. Because are you seriously telling me, Tucker, that you know how gays have sex? There are only two ways you would know this. One, you watch gay porn. Two, you are actually gay. Or that you've engaged in gay sex. Those are literally the only two ways that you would know a good amount about how gays have sex. Those are literally the only two ways. So, let's get to this article and see just how loony this gets. Far-right commentator Tucker Carlson has made the bizarre and unfounded claim that Pete Buttigieg isn't really gay and said he should answer some very specific questions about gay sex to prove Carlson wrong. And again, how the hell would Carlson know if Buttigieg was answering wrong? Because gays do not all have sex the same way, just like not all straight people have sex the same way. Carlson, a former Fox News Channel host, made the statement on the Wednesday episode of his podcast, The Tucker Carlson Show. His guest, fellow right-wing commentator Michael Knowles, brought up the idea that certain identities provide an advantage in liberal politics. I give you Pete Buttigieg, he said, and Carlson interjected, the fake gay guy? I have a friend who thinks he's a fake gay, Knowles responded. My gay producer was always like, he's not gay. So, because a gay person said it, it must be true. Okay, he doesn't have a gaydar. Pete Buttigieg has mentioned he does not have a working gaydar either. So, he was with a girl like 20 minutes ago and like he wants to be the Democratic nominee. It's like time for a gay guy, Carlson said. What? I'm sorry, did that ramble make sense to anybody? He was with a girl like 20 minutes ago? What girl? What are you talking about? He added that even if he ever interviews Buttigieg, I'm going to ask him very specific questions about gay sex and see if he can even answer. I doubt he even knows. You're not gay, dude. Stop. What the fuck? Is he going to... Did he probe his gay producer for how gay sex works so he could be prepared for the interview? Or is he going to let Buttigieg answer the questions? Not that Buttigieg would. Answer the questions and then ask his gay producer later? Because as we all know, every gay person knows what all the ways gays can have sex. Because as Tucker Carlson would know how each and every straight person has sex, right? That's how this works, right? What the hell? Okay. Now, the advocate actually left a link to this whole whole interview between Tucker Carlson and Michael Knowles, which I'm not going to subject myself to, but I will leave a link in the description box below in case you guys want to subject yourself to Tucker Carlson's voice and the insanity that is Michael Knowles. Okay, and it says here the discussion of Buttigieg starts at about the 157 mark. I do not know how long this video is. So, but anyway, there you go. This isn't the first time Carlson has claimed Buttigieg isn't gay. In a July 2024 broadcast, Carlson likewise cited his producer. My producer's like, no, it's totally a pose. He was dating women just a few years ago. That's totally fake. He's not gay at all, the host said. Okay, so now let's pretend that Pete Buttigieg did at one point date women. A lot of gay guys used to date women. It's called being closeted. A lot of gay guys either had beards while they were actually with guys, or they just refused to accept that they were gay and were dating women to try to convince themselves or try to change themselves. So, or that they were living in an environment like Pete Buttigieg was a mayor of a conservative city, South Bend, Indiana. So possibly he dated women simply because he didn't want his mayoral chances to go down the tubes because he's gay. During his second term, he came out as gay because he's like, I want to live authentically. And they still voted him in because by then they knew what kind of a person he was. So, again, so what if he dated women at one point? A lot of gay guys did. So, if this producer is real and is truly gay, they are the dumbest gay person in history because that's the thing. It doesn't take a genius to know that not all gay people are either comfortable with being gay or in a situation where they are comfortable admitting to the world that they're gay. So either way, there are gay men who've been married to women and have kids but are still gay. Whether it's because they're lying to themselves or they just aren't in a situation where they could live life as a gay man, they still get married and they still have kids. So, to women. So, again, even if true, does not negate the fact that he's gay. All gays keep very close track of that stuff, Carlson said. Are you fucking kidding me? I am now absolutely 100% convinced that this gay producer he has is totally made up bullshit. Because what the fuck? All gays keep very close track of that stuff? Are you kidding me? Yes, gay people go around and judge. Oh, you've been with a woman? You can't be a real gay. I'm sorry, again. Some people have to hide. Hell, how many people made the joke that Tim Scott is engaged because she's basically his beard? That he just found her and found someone to get engaged to so he would be more appealing as a presidential candidate. Because people thought it was weird that, he was a virgin till, I don't know how old he was, but it was apparently too old for people. Because who the hell waits till they're adults, I don't know if he was in his 30s, 40s maybe, when he finally lost his virginity, as if that's a mark of anything. So, in order to show people he's not gay, he got quickly engaged to a woman. I don't hear Tucker Carlson saying shit about Tim Scott. What the heck? And Laura Loomer just dropped the bomb that Lindsey Graham is gay. Nobody says shit to him. Conversely, Carlson said last year that Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, is gay, but the party won't let him come out. Pick a side. Either that's the thing to do, or the Democratic Party is not letting him be gay. Pick one. Walz has been married to a woman for several years and has 2 children. Okay. Now, like I just said, that is not proof that Tim Walz couldn't be gay. They are literally saying the very thing that this supposed gay producer is saying. That because that a gay guy dated a woman, he can't be gay. So, no, that is not the proof that he isn't gay. He could be in the closet. However, if you know anything about Tim Walz, he's not the kind of guy who would be living in the closet. So yeah, he's most likely not gay because, he would have come out a long time ago. Buttigieg has been clear about being gay, and in a world where there is still much homophobia, it's not likely that pretending to be gay would bring him an advantage. Exactly. Consider all the shit that happened when, I keep mentioning this, woman who voted in the Iowa caucuses. It was the primaries. And she voted for Pete Buttigieg until she found out he was married to a man. And all of a sudden she wanted to change her vote because apparently that was a bridge too far for her. I don't know if it was because he was gay per se or because he was in a same-sex marriage. Not sure, do not care. She had an absolute fit. Then there is the fact that when he had Chasten up with him at a rally and they kissed because, presidential nominees and their spouses do that sort of thing. And they were made relentless fun of simply because, they're 2 guys who kissed because, how strange it is that a man would kiss his husband. Anyway. He was the first out gay person confirmed by the U.S. Senate for a cabinet position when he became Transportation Secretary in the Biden administration in 2021. He came out in 2015 when he was running for a second term as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He noted that there was some ugliness after his announcement, but he was reelected with 80% of the vote. I'm sure there was some ugliness. Like I said, he was afraid to come out because this is a conservative area. So, of course there's going to be some ugliness. He went on to seek the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination and went farther in the race than any out gay candidate to date. Okay, that's a low bar. That's a very low bar. I mean, isn't he the only one? He married his husband, Chasten Buttigieg, in 2018, and they are the parents of twins. And that was all sorts of mockery with the fact that they had twins. All the jokes about, wearing fake nipples so they can breastfeed. And it's like, what is wrong with you people? Of course, it came from Fox News and specifically Laura Ingraham. Because you guys have absolutely nothing better to do than insult at a 3rd grade level. What the hell? In Carlson's latest claim, he said of South Bend that Pete Buttigieg found some benighted Midwestern town that he can become a mayor of. He's freaking from South Bend, Indiana. What the hell? Where the hell do you think he's from? Mars? I really have no idea. But, since he believed the bullshit about Obama, and apparently there was some sort of similar stuff going on with Kamala Harris, I have no problem believing that he thinks that Pete Buttigieg is from somewhere other than South Bend. However, Buttigieg is a native of South Bend, and both his parents taught at the University of Notre Dame, which is nearby. It's not nearby. It's literally in South Bend, Indiana. Buttigieg recently decided not to run for a U.S. Senate seat coming open in Michigan, where he and his family live now. Democrat Gary Peters is not seeking re-election next year. That has many speculating that he will make another presidential run in 2028. There is no record of him commenting on Carlson's claims because they are that outlandish. I mean, I'm sure Pete Buttigieg figured that he's not going to dignify this crap with a comment. So, that is the end of that article. I would love to know where the hell Carlson thinks that he's from. Did his gay producer tell him that he's from Gayville? Seriously, that was meant as a joke, but I wouldn't put it past Carlson to think there is a land of gay people. Because if he isn't that particularly dumb, he thinks his audience is that dumb. So, I'm not completely sure if he's just grifting in this case or if he's that dumb. But considering he's making up his gay producer, because there's no way that this person exists. Just absolutely no freaking way. So anyway, that is the end of that article. And like I said, I will leave a link to this particular article in the description box below. So if you guys want to watch that exchange, I personally do not because, I want to not have my brain cells commit suicide. Anyway, with that, I will see you guys in the next video.